Lumby Mayor Kevin Acton was first elected to council in 2008. In 2009, he was elected mayor, when then Mayor Eric Foster announced he was going to seek the BC Liberal nomination, after then MLA Tom Christensen announced his retirement. He sits on the regional district of the North Okanagan. Acton is also a massage therapist, paramedic, and fabricator.
Welcome to our Shaw TV studios in Prospera Place in Kelowna for our ongoing series of Ask the Mayor. My name is Doug Brown, and today we are joined by Lumby Mayor Kevin Acton. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Doug. It's good to be here.
So, first off, let's talk a little bit about being mayor and becoming mayor. What made you make that decision that you wanted to become the mayor?
The decision to become mayor, I guess, is sort of driven by my belief that we should always be doing a bit of community service. I've always belonged to like a service club, Rotary, Lions, Kinsman. For a while, I was sat on the board of massage therapy for British Columbia. So when I sort of moved to Lumby and got interested in what was going on in the town, I have children there, I have a business there, kind of got spiked a little bit of interest, and that sort of brought me to starting out.
So what is it about the job that excites you and interests you enough to do it twice? Because it's not always an easy job.
No, it's definitely not always an easy job. I think it's part of being informed and part of the decision-making process. It's really, I don't know, it's really fulfilling to be part of something that's bigger than yourself. So when the community is looking to make something happen, to be able to be part of that, it's very exciting. And like you say, it doesn't always go how you want it, but it's a very rewarding job.
Now, you took the step up from councillor to mayor. What's the biggest difference, do you find?
I think, I didn't get a lot of chance to be on council. I was there for about 6 months, and then MLA Foster, or who's now MLA Foster, stepped down from being the mayor. And so my experience on council was brief, but the difference, I guess, is that you're more of a figurehead. You have to make sure that you're out in the public. There's a lot more events that you need to attend, and you just really need to make sure that you're addressing the needs of the citizens.
Now, you're talking about addressing those needs. Is it a concern for you, or do you think at all about being popular, maybe doing the popular thing?
No, thank goodness. Because the thing with being popular, I guess, is it really depends on what you're discussing that day. Because there are decisions you'll make one day that one group is very pleased with and another's not, and then the very next day you can make a decision that has the opposite effect. So somebody once told me that if you're in politics long enough, you'll upset everybody.
So, talking about upsetting people and challenges, what was the biggest challenge that you faced in the last little while?
I think, definitely dealing with the flooding issues that are going on in Lumby. With climate change and with the weather issues that we have been having lately, it's really hard as the mayor not to take on some personal responsibility for the safety of the community. And I think with the creek running through Lumby the way it does, it's a real challenge because there's not, we have one grocery store, and one or two of our major industries would be affected by the flood. And if any one of those had to shut or close, it might be the last time their doors open for the public. So it's been, that's been one of the biggest challenges lately. What
kind of things as mayor can you do in that kind of situation around something like flooding?
Mostly we've been trying to work with partnerships. So we've been partnering with Greater Vernon Water through the regional district. We've had conversations with the province. We've worked with DFO. It's a fish-bearing creek. It's actually the furthest creek that salmon spawn on the eastern coast. So it's important that we protect it. But those types of conversations take a long time to develop because there's really needs to be a plan put in place that's going to solve the problem and not just be a Band-Aid fix. And that's kind of what we've been doing so far. So we're really working hard now to make that happen.
I mean, it's got to be a tricky balancing act. I know that the salmon paths and things are a big draw and a big part of your community. So you can't just like throw dams up on the creek just to prevent the flooding like they might have done in the 50s.
That's right. Yeah, the biggest thing is controlling the freshet that's coming down and making sure that we're prepared for it. So we're looking at things like maybe adding some freeboard to the dam that's up there. Vernon uses it as a water source. We're looking at creating wetlands maybe down lower close to where we are so that there's some ability for water retention. And again, like we're just really, it's still wide open and we're trying to guess the weather as any weatherman in Canada knows isn't easy. So.
We'll talk a little bit about sort of family life and personal life. Has it been an adaptation for your family?
Things that we do as a family have changed a bit. You know, instead of whitewater rafting for a week in the Kootenays, we're now spending time, you know, with social events with organizations that might be doing fundraising for causes. But it's really, it's been a benefit to my family all the way around. We talk a lot of politics at home, and they get to see and understand what's happening and going on out there. So it's good. It's been a good thing.
Maybe a bit of a role model for getting involved in their community when they grow up.
Yeah, we have some great debates. They're getting older now, so we have some really good debates about government politics and policy for sure.
So do you consider yourself outspoken, approachable? How would you characterize your style?
You know, I wouldn't say that I'm shy or not outspoken, but at the same time, you know, during the day, I have people stop and talking to me all the time on the street. So I think I'm actually very approachable in the sense that small community life makes me that way. So I'm always available, it seems, and it feels good to be that kind of person.
All right. Well, we will be right back with more, so stick around. Welcome back. We're talking to Lumby Mayor Kevin Acton. So, Kevin, what's it like being the mayor of a small community? We touched on that a little bit, with the out in the community, being accessible and being at community events all the time with your family. But talk about that, maybe the difference between that, and we've talked to some of the bigger city mayors here. What do you think is different? Yeah,
I mean, there'd definitely be some huge differences between you know, a town of 120,000 or a million compared to, or a city of 120,000 or a million compared to, like you say, just under 2,000. But there's a lot of similarities as well, I think. You know, a kilometer of pavement in Lumby is exactly the same price as a kilometer of pavement in Kelowna. But along with that sort of economy of scale, the problems also come along with economy of scale. So if we have some issues with homelessness, or they're smaller and they're a little bit easier to deal with because kind of a bit of a family feeling, where I can't imagine being the Kelowna mayor dealing with something like that. It's got to be very difficult. Those human stories that really touch your heart, I think, would be very hard for a big city mayor. Where I have the disadvantage, I guess, is I don't have the resources that, say, a big mayor would. So when it comes to making things happen in the village, you know, I have one CAO, I have one CFO, and then a public works foreman, and that's it. So we get spread a little thin when we're trying to deal with public complaints or public issues or things that need to be done, especially when it comes to bringing new ideas to the table. So if council, and we have an excellent council, and they really want to make Lumby the best place in the world to live. So when they're constantly bringing stuff to the table and we're piling it up on stuff, we have to be very careful in a small town. There's not a lot of resources there.
Only so much you can do.
Just, yeah, there's not an infinite amount of things that we can do, for sure. So
speaking about things to do, and we touched a little bit on flooding as one of the major issues. What are some of the other most important issues you think that are facing Lumby?
You know, we just did a survey,
yeah.
A citizen survey, and the results came back with almost exactly what we were thinking was the issues. We have some challenges with housing, with the market being sort of on the rise and housing selling quickly. For marketable housing, I guess would be the term for seniors and for youth are a little bit of a challenge. We were having some challenges with a physician, with recruiting and retaining a physician in our village. That's changed. We have a physician that's moving in July of 2017, I believe. So
was that something that council was involved in recruiting?
Yeah, and it's funny because I don't think previously, you know, in the years gone by, it was issues for councils, but it's changed a lot, right? The medical profession has changed a lot. Doctors have figured out that there's a life beyond medicine, and so they're working less hours. I understand that there's actually more doctors per capita now than there ever has been, but the challenge is that the hours are different, right? So they have a life now. So when towns like Lumby start losing their physicians, it becomes a real issue because travel for some of our residents is tough. A lot of people,
even though you're fairly close to Vernon, but still, it's
we are. Yeah, we're 27 kilometers from Vernon, so it's available there. But for people that have mobility challenges, it's a real issue for them. So it's kind of like, it kind of equates to like having a high school or an elementary school in your town. Yeah. It really is a core that gets built around that. So right. That they're a core part of the village.
Now we're talking about the budget in Lumby, saying in the year was just over 1.4 million compared to 466,000 and a bit the year before, which sounds like a pretty big jump.
Yeah, it does. It sounds like a big jump. But I think when we look through the budget lines, we realize that some of that number, I want to explain it properly, that number really jumps around from year to year because we also include grants in our budgets. Okay. And Lumby was very, very fortunate last year to receive a $1.7 million grant from the federal government for water infrastructure. So we had some really old pipes downtown that we're feeding out to some of the other side streets that quite possibly were leaking. We were losing a lot of water from our system. So this is where this big change in the budgets come from.
Right. Yeah. So.
Although it is growing, some of those proceeds are definitely from growth. We've had some new business in town. We've definitely had lots of new housing being built. Most of that huge jump is the significant portion is grants.
Right. So, how do you negotiate with the council and the needs of the community to come up with the level of taxation? What is that process like in Lumby?
Well, you know, we have an amazing CFO who does a really good job at putting a presentation together every year. And I have to say that not a lot of people come to ask.
I was going to say, in your survey, it's asked about your input into the budget. And it was like...
not a lot.
Yeah, it was like a very small percentage of people.
Not a lot,
and many maybe thought that they couldn't even do it, that there wasn't an opportunity.
Yeah, and I was surprised to see that. We really encourage it because it makes our decision making so much easier. If a large group of people are all pushing towards the same, end goal, we can really pick up on that and make something happen. If we just have a sense of what's going on, which is kind of what we have now, we can work on things, but we're a little bit hesitant to put too much into things. So we're not going to go out and borrow a bunch of money to build infrastructure for an industrial park unless we feel like it's got some real drive behind it. So I guess, public consultation is a big part, but it has to, in a small town, we're lucky enough we can get some feedback on the street, we can get some feedback during council meetings, but as far as the budget goes, it's been fairly unattended since I've been the mayor, really. And
I mean, I guess anybody that's watching the show, you obviously are looking for that input.
Absolutely. If anybody's watching the show that wants to have even the full document, that it's always available in the village office, and the CFO is more than happy to explain it. He puts a lot of effort actually into that report that he does, and so he would love to have people come in and peruse it and ask questions. And like I said, it makes it easier for us to make decisions, for sure.
Although again, from the public survey, it seemed like their allocation of funds is pretty. It looked like it was pretty close to what most people were expecting, and they didn't want to see a big shift into the different areas.
Yeah, I mean, if we went solely by the survey, it would look like people are pretty happy with just about everything other than maybe some street maintenance and a few other things. But as far as the level of taxation for services, everybody sort of feels like they're kind of getting their money's worth, it would seem. Yeah. But there's a few things that Lumby does different because we're a smaller town, that we can sort of take some of the burden off the taxpayer's shoulders. Right. So like our village office manages to stay open from 8 o'clock in the morning till 4:30 at night without closing the doors for lunch because we offer ICBC products. So, we sell insurance and generate revenue from that. We have a community forest. We do the administration for the community forest, so we create some revenue for that. We manage our parks and rec with our partners, and we have some revenue that's generated from that. So as far as wages and employees go, they're almost kind of paying for themselves, I guess, in a way.
Welcome back to Ask the Mayor. Today we're sitting down with Lumby Mayor Kevin Acton. Now, Kevin, I guess crime is something that lots of people are concerned about. What's the crime level like in Lumby? It seems like it would be a safe place to live. That's the kind of idyllic small town. Yeah,
and you're not far off. When I first ran for council, that was actually one of the concerns. I think there was some, it tends to go in waves. I think with all communities, we tend to see waves and patterns in crime. And when I was running for council originally, one of the campaign issues was private property damage and theft, vehicle break-ins and whatnot. It's really changed. I think the RCMP really stepped up their game in Lumby. We have a bylaw officer now that's working 4 days a week part-time. We have citizens on patrol that we managed to get up and running thanks to some volunteers. We're looking at a block watch. Our bylaw officer actually goes to the elementary school and does the DARE program with them, and so there's a lot of contact with the youth in the community, and tagging's covered up right away. We had just all these sort of proactive programs to try and show a difference, and I think it's really made a huge difference. Lumby feels to be a very safe place. Yeah.
What's the RCMP situation there like? You don't have your own detachment.
No, yeah. As long as you're a community under 5,000, you sort of have a feeder attachment. I mean, we have a detachment in Lumby, and it has 5 regular members. Oh, okay. It's partially funded through the province, still, thankfully, because it does get expensive when you're over 5,000. But we have a great relationship with the RCMP, who also in turn have a great relationship with Vernon as well as I do. And so what we do is we allow the RCMP to sort of go where they're needed. So if they're having something huge in Vernon, if the bars are closing at 2 o'clock on a Saturday and Lumby's really quiet, we'll allow our RCMP to go in and help them. At the same time, when we're having something like Lumby Days, where there's a huge draw and the population just booms for a few days, the RCMP from Vernon will come out and we'll have 7 or 8 police officers in the park alone. So it works really well.
Good to be flexible.
It is, and I think I really think that's the key to success of how Lumby's being portrayed right now as far as feeling safe and the property crimes, for sure. Employment
is always an issue. In smaller towns, it can be a real issue. We'll talk about major industries and what the employment is like in the area. Like, are people working in town or out of town?
Yeah, in any small town, I think employment is definitely an issue for sure. I think if we were to study small communities across the province, we'd find that there's less employment in smaller communities. But we're lucky in several ways. I mean, we have some bigger companies that have moved into town. We've got the cheese plant. We've got automotive recycling place, some logging outfits that are still working, community forest where we're putting people to work. But the real nice thing is we have the businesses that are outside of the community where people can work and come home. So Vernon's just 27 kilometers away. I think 35% in a survey that was done recently, 35% of people work in Vernon or out of town. So there's a real fine balance there. We're looking to attract business, but we also understand that we need to have a workforce. So we're working on the housing issue, and we're also working on attracting business to the industrial park.
And I guess that kind of industrial base gives you a tax base as well. That's important.
That's actually the real base, the crux of the whole thing is with an underutilized industrial park, and in the way that industrial rates are set up because of the services, the residential areas end up holding a lot of the bag if you don't have a functional industrial park. So it's really important that we keep that up and running and keep that tax base there.
And that's been a focus.
Yeah, it has. Yeah.
So I'm just curious, is there a typical Lumby resident? How would you characterize sort of what people in the town are like, and are they long-term, young, old, and how important is it to attract new people and young people?
So typical Lumby resident, I'd say that's me. So I've been there about 25 years. I really enjoy the outdoors, really enjoy the small town living, really wanted a place to bring my children up where I knew where they were, and so did my neighbors. And I think that's sort of what type of people live in Lumby, and it's what type of people that town attracts. Again, I was alluding to earlier, we're close to Vernon, we're close to the airport, we're close to places. So we have sort of the benefit of both things. We have this beautiful rural living, but we have the cities and the world 45 minutes down the road that is available to us. So, flying out for a holiday to Mexico, we're not traveling forever to get out to an airport. So it's kind of your average outdoors type person that would probably pick Lumby. That's very family orientated.
Is the population growing or declining? Do you know?
It's growing, and it's growing reasonably slow, which is good for us. We want to be able to just sort of build slowly through the years responsibly and not get into this snowball effect. But I don't think the population of Lumby has really been going backwards for a long time.
Welcome back to our ongoing series of Ask the Mayors, where we're talking to mayors from up and down the valley. And today we are joined by Lumby Mayor Kevin Acton.
Thank you.
So you've got an interesting fundraiser that you take part in on a regular basis. Tell us a little bit about camping out and fasting. It's for the White Valley Community Resource Center?
That's right. Yeah. So in our small communities, we have social issues like anybody else, and the White Valley Community Resource Center tends to be the hub around that provides the programming for all that. And I sat on, as the mayor, I sat on the board for that committee for quite some time, and we switched councillors in and out. But basically what the challenge was is they kept running a little bit short every year, and we went to the province every year for $10,000 and $10,000, or we need $30,000. And you know, in the ministry, it's tight. That's a tight ministry, and we know that if we get that money, it's probably coming from somebody else. So we didn't, even though we made a good case, at the same time, we realized that we need to maybe be involved a little bit more. The village already kicks in, the area residents already kick in, so there's some municipal taxes going in. But the board came up with this great idea for what they call the legacy fund. It's sort of like a foundation. So it's this money that sits there, collect through donations, and it goes into the bank and sits there in perpetuity, and they collect the interest. And sort of to raise awareness about that fund and about people that just go with less. I mean, somebody told me one time that we're all only 2 paychecks away from, you know, being destitute. So that really that statement kind of hit home for me, and I thought, you know, if I could just get people's attention, then maybe we can help this funding and create this service, and maybe even just start some conversations around other ways that we can help. So yeah, I go to the Lumby pullout every year, or I try to every year, and set up a tent with a case of water and a mattress and a sleeping bag. And to be honest with you, it's probably the 2 days of the year that I'm most engaged by the citizens out of any other time in the year. So it's pretty much steady traffic in and out of the pullout. So
they come in and check in on you?
Check in, have conversations, give me ideas, make donations, of course, and which we're always grateful for. But yeah, it's you know, the fire chief comes spend a couple hours with me. He's like, yeah, I got your ear now. And you know, we have some great conversations that happen up there, and it's for a really good thing. If it's okay, I'll tell you a little quick funny story about that. I was camped out there. I think it was the first year or the second year. And a gentleman had driven by us late, probably 11 o'clock at night, and I was just kind of getting ready. The last person had left. And apparently what he did, he went down to the gas station and said, what's going on with the guy camped out at the thing? And they didn't realize that I was there. So they said, well, you know, sometimes we get vagrants, and, you know, maybe he's just there for the night or something. So he turned around, he came back up, and he wasn't even really from Lumby. And he pulled in and he, you know, introduced himself, and I introduced myself as being Kevin. And he asked me if he could get me a room. He said, I heard there's a local hotel just down the way. He said, I'd love to just pay for a room for the night for you if you'd like. And I was really touched by that. I thought, you know, there's a lot of good people out there. So it was nice to see. Yeah,
it's always good when you can see that you know, just meet the people that are making a difference.
Yeah, it reconfirms your convictions, right?
Yeah.
It makes it a whole lot easier to go without food for 2 days when you know people care, right? And it was a real testament to that.
Now, I want to talk a little bit quickly about sort of development in the town and what kind of direction that might go. But you recently had sort of an opportunity for a development that was quite controversial in the area. I was just wondering talk a little bit about the jail.
Yes, the prison issue was definitely a tough time for Lumby. I was kind of a new mayor. We had a different administrator at the time that had been working with another mayor. And when I came in, it really wasn't on the books yet, but I think there was sort of some possible discussion around it. So it was brought to my attention. I thought it warranted being investigated for sure. Unfortunately, it went from just being an idea and being investigated to just being this huge explosion of diversity. And there was people that really didn't want it, and did a lot of fear mongering, and there was people that really wanted it and really stretched the truth. You know, it was going to create a lot of jobs. It was going to create a lot of tax base. However, you know, do we have enough people to fill those jobs? Were they going to live in Lumby? So there was a lot of questions. I think I was the first and only mayor so far to have to walk through a picket line to get into a council meeting, which was surprising. It was hard for me. It was my friends, you know. I'm walking through and they go, "Hi, Kevin," and I'm like, "Hi," you know, as I go into the office. But it didn't pan out. I think the province felt that there was too much. There's just too much in the mix there. It was too adversarial. And so it went to Oliver, where I think they didn't have as much resistance. I think they're working with the First Nations down there, and they had a lot of support from the mayors in the other communities. Not that Lumby didn't. I mean, the mayors around us were also very supportive of the idea. Again, it comes down to the idea. But, you know, some people had very legitimate complaints or concerns, while some people had some very legitimate reasons for wanting it. And jobs and income were certainly some of it. And there were some people that just didn't want their town to change. So in hindsight, as it all washes through and the town has really come and healed itself together through a lot of things like the Hockeyville and stuff that's happened in the past, I can see that it was still a good idea to propose it. And the fact that it didn't happen is okay. And Lumby's really diversified and come out of it with flying colors. So it's been an experience.
Just had a little bit of time left in the show today, but I did want to touch on Hockeyville. Like, congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
What difference is that making?
Oh, that's huge. I mean, it's the talk of the town, and it probably will be for a long time. To be winners of an international competition, to be recognized throughout Canada as Hockeyville has been massive for the residents of Lumby. And, you know, it was, I would love to take the credit for it, but it had absolutely really nothing to do with the mayor's office or council. It was really the volunteers, and they just came together, and you get goosebumps thinking about the amount of effort they put into it. So it was, but the publicity and the feel-good issue are part of it. It's been amazing for our community.
All right, well, congratulations again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for taking the time to come here and talk to us.